Walmart locales. Some people choose to live inside of a Starbucks. Some people choose to live inside of a Target. Others have chosen the Google City lifestyle. I, being from the South, live inside of a Walmart. But my aisle is one of the most respected aisles in Walmart.
I am the Pope of the future. I'm the Pope in the future.
I live inside of the vending aisle wherein all French fries are distributed to all those who live in my skyrise Walmart. In the future, we only eat fries, genetically modified fries. As you can see, I'm wearing... In this video, we're going to explain to you how your life's going to be changed, Primitive. Stop picking fleas, ape. Hey, ape. Young ape there. Why are you throwing your fecal matter? Why are you tossing your scat, ape? Primitive monkey brains. In the future, we live inside of Walmarts. All of us. Many of us crammed, packed into various aisles. Each aisle contains a small sleeping module which rolls out. Aisles are filed according to one's chosen fictional LARPing creature. I myself am a rat. I'm the Pope of the future. I'm the Pope in the future. And in the future, all of our food is provided directly from Central Walmart.
It's the monkeypox summer. Bill Gates in a Hummer. I said Gil Bates in a Hummer. It's a yellow Hummer. It's a stunner. It's a banana colored Hummer. It's the monkeypox summer. Gil Bates in a banana Hummer. It's the monkeypox summer. Bringing 25 crates of bananas in the slammer. It's a FEMA camp slammer. Slammer jammer. Ain't no bananas and pajamas in this slammer. Cause it's a FEMA camp slammer. What's up, boys and girls? Monkeypox summer. Hope y'all having a good time. We have beautiful Tristan joining us live in the person of Tristana, in persona Tristani. What's up, dude?
It's cracking.
What's up, dude?
Is my audio working?
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh man, my video though, right?
No, you're coming through. Thank you very much for your appearances. We are very honored to have Goddess with us.
I am here with Jay Dyer. We'll talk about the spirituality. How would you like to begin, Mr. J? I have taken my ayahuasca microdose. I've been nebulizing pure ayahuasca through my nasal passages, and I feel like I am ready to flourish.
We must begin with highest pitch of booger wishes.
Mr. Osho, as Sadhguru does not like competition from Osho. Sadhguru wants to be only guru, do max depopulation guru. We teach world not to have the babies, to stop having the babies. And the proper way to be a guru, according to Sadhguru, who receive his spiritualities directly from rishis, from generations going back all the way back to Shiva, get it directly from Shiva's lingam. The proper way to pronounce it is not with booger whistle. It is with long hypnotic eshish. When you say flourish, it is flourish. No booger whistle. There is no booger whistle.
There is just one problem with your stories. Problem is they took the stones from here. What's up? Are you ready?
Yeah, man. I mean, you're being billed by the minute, so it's it's all good.
Welcome everybody. This is.
I like those glasses, by the way, man. Those are.
I stole
nice.
those out of the tomb, Elvis's tomb.
Straight out of Elvis's tomb.
Grave robber, tomb raider.
They actually look like some. They look like some that I recently saw our friend Sadhguru wearing. Look like some Sadhguru.
When I met your mom, it was womb raider. Tristan don't like mama jokes. He takes that personally.
I don't have a mom, so I mean.
Oh.
I mean, my mom.
My bad, dude.
My mom savagely beat me.
What you? I thought you didn't have one.
No, I did. I disowned her because she used to savagely beat me while wearing those Elvis glasses.
Would she savagely beat you, or Randy savagely beat you?
Well, she would do it in the macho. She would beat me.
Come here,
exactly.
Tristan.
She would do it. She would taunt me in the Macho Man Randy Savage voice while wearing Elvis glasses.
Oh yeah.
And my mom actually had a booger whistle, which is another reason why I'm not really.
Your mom used the booger whistle as a rape whistle.
Yeah, it was hard times, man. It was a hard childhood.
I got to write that down. Jesse Ventura. I see. I have to catalog all the impersonations because I've already forgot them. And Macho Man. So that's 2 impressions that I forgot about. So I got to collect.
This for your resume.
Yes. I'm applying to the World Economic Forum, and they asked for a list of all the impressions. So.
Okay.
Oh, Klaus.
Okay.
I need to put him on there.
Cool.
Yeah, so as you guys know, this stream was planned last week, and Tristan stood me up, basically just like threw up a giant alpha nail middle finger, right?
Two double middle fingers painted
alpha
tips.
nail style, exactly.
Alpha nail, alpha fingers. No, I mean it wasn't anything personal. It was just that there was somebody more famous and somebody with a few more followers that so yeah.
Yeah, well, I expect that because times are tough. You gotta climb the e-celebrity diva ladder as best you can. So today we're going to be talking about gurus, new age cults, transformational festivals, which Tristan has done some really great streams and podcasts on lately, especially the one he did last night or 2 days ago. I forget when it was, but the Alpha Nails, Aubrey Marcus, and female messiahs. He got into some really awesome material, awesome stuff. Several elements of which I'd never remembered and had never heard of. Saint Simonians and these other. I got a list of these gurus. Flora Tristana, right? That was a crazy one.
Flora Tristan, yeah, great name, but not such great fruits. She was an interesting one. Flora Tristan. I mean, she was actually connected with Eliphas Levi.
Right. We'll get into that. Hold on. So let's not get ahead of our time. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was reading.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I have the script that Jay sent me, and I'll wait to get to that part. I was skipping ahead on the script.
Literally every word, every joke, every pause is scripted. There's little notes. This is pause.
Yeah.
Quite a few of the notes to Tristan said, try to at least be sort of masculine here. I don't know if that's just difficult for him to do, but I had to keep putting that in the notes to try to be more masculine. But we'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been working on because when I turned trans, I decided I was going to be a butch trans lesbo. So I'm like working on that vibe a little bit.
All right, well, we can switch over to YouTube or to Rockfin. So please try not to destroy my channel, as I know you're apt to try to do. We know how we underhanded Tristan. I think is what they call you on 4chan. But look at that solid face. Doesn't even want to smile. Look at that.
I mean, well, when somebody says something funny, like when somebody who, you might see a crack a smile. But normally I'm working on my stoic butch appearance. Okay. I've been mewing.
Let's get into. So we have a list of gurus. We've got Teal Swan that we want to cover. I got a lot of notes on her. We've got Nature Boy. Somebody you hit me to. There's Bentino that quite a few people are getting hip to now. He's sort of the up and coming Teal Swan type of character. There is the SDA vegetarian cult link that I want to ask you about. There's a few classic characters that we've covered like Osho and Jim Jones, things like that we can refer back to. The Bikram yoga guy is a classic one. I've studied Father Yod quite a bit. There's the Blavatsky, Alice Bailey. You're going to tell us about some of these female messiahs, as we mentioned, and a couple random things like Synanon was a cult that I looked into recently. And how do you want to kick this off in terms of what did you have a period where, I know you kind of experimented with like DMT and these kinds of things. Did you have a period where you actually got into anything New Age, or were you just kind of reading the books? I think we've talked about this before, but I don't remember what you said.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in high school, like I started getting into just various countercultural movements and stuff. And I always had kind of a fascination with 60s culture in high school. I think that's kind of my generation, especially growing up in California. You start smoking weed kind of young, maybe, and you get into mushrooms and LSD and stuff like that. So I always had this interest in like the history of the counterculture, but also a skepticism, like a general skepticism about it, because I had heard things like Timothy Leary being involved in MK Ultra experiments and whatnot. So I did have, I guess, what I would consider sort of a healthy skepticism of countercultural movements. But when I was like 18, 19 in college, I definitely started getting into more of reading various kind of occult literature and whatnot. And I think when you take psychedelics, when you take so-called psychedelics, which are basically just they make you really suggestible,
right?
And you're surrounding yourself with the cultural phenomenon that's associated with it. That cultural phenomenon all comes through a specific like Gnostic lens, right? So it really does. These are kind of initiation tools, and when you start using these things, you even see them as such, right? Even if you haven't studied like occult initiations and whatnot, you feel kind of like the psychic power that these things open up. And of course, now looking back, it's like I really do think they open you up to deception, right? They open you up to
it's a delusion, right?
Yeah, delusional states where you have delusions of grandeur,
right?
And then also like this hunger for like psychic power, right? Like you start tripping on mushrooms, you start tripping on even just weed edibles and stuff like that. You enter into states, kind of alternate states, and you disrupt your normal thought patterns, and that does open you up to various influences. So anyways, long story short, yes, I did become interested in a lot of this stuff in high school and then like the first couple years of college, but then eventually realized that you're playing with fire, essentially, right? Like these are I remember hanging out with people. I remember being like a freshman in college in the dorm rooms, right? And everybody's always trying to tell you, oh, you gotta try this, you gotta try that. And there was always stuff like mushrooms, and people were always making mushroom tea and trying to dose you with various stuff. But I quickly realized that like in these social situations, the people that have these drugs, the people that have like the mushrooms and stuff like that, they're always there's always this weird power hierarchy within these social situations of people kind of trying to get one up on another, feel socially superior and kind of dominant to each other in certain ways. So there is this weird animalistic psychic dominance thing that starts to happen in these states. And that made me really uncomfortable. But I remember this one time, like hanging out with this guy who I was, relatively good friends with. I thought he was pretty funny at the time. He was a really cynical person, but then, I probably at the time also was. And I remember him trying to like get me to take mushrooms or something, but he was just subtly nagging the whole time, like just subtly trying to like make me feel crappy before this situation. I remember saying like, no, I'm not going to take mushrooms with you, man. Like, you're getting weird. And these same people that I was hanging out with, like, I remember watching them kind of drive other kids. I mean, they were 18, 19 years old, right? I remember watching them kind of drive other kids to like the brink of insanity, just from childish kind of schoolyard bullying style stuff. Not in like a SJW way where it's like, oh, anybody who disagrees with me is bullying, but like really just like kind of like group mentality, kind of this demonic phenomenon where this one specific kid, he was from LA. He ended up leaving college, like leaving the university and going home because he just got picked apart, like psychologically picked apart in this really demonic way. And they would always give him drugs. Like they called him gerbil. They called this kid gerbil. I felt bad for this kid. His name was Kevin, and he was a nice kid. He's a goofy kid from LA, and everyone would call him gerbil. And whenever they got some new thing, they'd make him be their lab rat. And they'd like feed him, oh, we got these new blotter, and we're going to feed it to this kid. And it was really demonic. So anyways, seeing that stuff really made me realize that the psychedelics and these substances truly are doorways to kind of this subtle power. And that was kind of what led me to looking deeper into the experiments that were done. I remember going to the library and trying to read everything I could about the history of the use of these substances and the experiments done by governments, and kind of started to realize like there's something else going on here, especially with Watson being this banker connected to JP Morgan, going down to Mexico and meeting Maria Sabina, and then bringing the mushroom back to America. And then just it spread like wildfire from there. So I started kind of looking more deeply into this stuff. And the new age, the occult, psychic power, and the search for psychic and psychological upper hands and ultimately kind of occult power is all yoked in with the the drug use, the festivals, Burning Man, Grateful Dead, all these scenes. There's this dark underbelly of kind of
that dark side is something that most people just cannot figure out. They don't understand. I mean, because the whole 60s counterculture has this front appearance of the idea of pacifism, peace, anti-war, all of which might have to a degree been legitimate organic movements, anti-establishment movements, but pretty quickly it was co-opted. We know that mushrooms were featured on the cover of Henry Luce's Time magazine, the OSS Skull and Bones produced propaganda outfit, Time magazine, and that really helped to promote and to push the idea of doing these things. And then, of course, a lot of the bands and the record labels also got involved in this. And the deeper that we go into the history of the importation of Eastern mysticism and meditation, you get these figures like Swami Vivekananda, who's really foundational for the humanist movement, which we've talked about recently. I've shared that video that went into the history of Swami Vivekananda having meetings with Rockefeller Sr., who thought that this was a great idea to, basically congeal the various religions into something, in my view, that they thought they could control. And that's why the authorized biography of the Rockefeller has an entire chapter on them basically funding and steering the entire ecumenist movement, again, which is not disconnected from New Age. It's actually connected directly to the New Age movement, and it's all from the same sources. So basically the British Empire's studies and approaches to social engineering is where we get people like Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Annie Besant, who are the three figures most important for Lucifer Publishing, or the Lucis Trust as it would become known in the United Nations. I'm not going to rehash all that. You guys know that because we covered that in several streams recently. But we have to keep in mind that all of today's transformational festivals that Tristan has called attention to, your Teal Swans, your Bentinho, your
Bentinho, Vallejo,
all of these characters really have their root and their origin out of Eastern mysticism, Blavatsky, Besant, and eventually even Crowley. A lot of people don't realize the background influence that Crowley had on the Aquarian Age, the new Aeon as it would come to be called. He had quite a bit of influence on the New Age. And many of these people, as we said, also were intelligence assets at varying levels and degrees. We know for sure Crowley, in regard to other people like Huxley, Leary, we have CIA, these kinds of connections there. We've got deep state figures connected to the rise of Esalen Institute, which promoted sort of the New Age think tank. So that's something else to keep in mind as well. Roerich with his promotion of the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, because they were all under ascended masters. Even Elvis got into the idea of ascended masters, as we saw in last night's stream. So some of the commonalities, so you were talking about, you were giving us your journey about you were researching this stuff, and what were some of the things you saw that other than like the individual guy that you're talking about, Gerbil, getting picked on? What were some of the other things you started noticing beyond like occult powers and seeking power? Like, did you start to doubt some of the figures like Terrence McKenna? Did other figures pop up as kind of sus?
Well, isn't it weird that the mushroom always tells people that they need to become, tell the men to become more effeminate and worship the ladies, and the goddess will return to the earth, and the patriarchal hierarchy will be destroyed. I mean, you look at the message that you get, that people get. It's not just happening in a vacuum, right? These things didn't just flood the market. They didn't just, the 1960s in the United States didn't just happen in a vacuum. So I think looking back at other historical epochs and seeing the same patterns happening and the same belief structures being pushed, I think that's something that's really relevant. But I mean, as far as like my own personal experience in these realms, with the so-called psychedelics and this stuff, it really does lead people to, like, the people that get really into this stuff and that really start to mess around with their own consciousness. There's a couple paths that can be taken. One of those paths is to become like a new age guru, right? One of those paths is becoming the cult leader. And that's, you see that in power dynamics in small groups of friends, where there will be, one person who's a little bit more charismatic, or maybe one person who's a little bit more psychopathic than other people will sometimes kind of take the reins of the social vessel that these people are, moving along in, and direct it towards certain ends. And it's usually always their own self-aggrandizement or their own little pet power projects within the power dynamics. And I think, what you've been exploring with people like Teal Swan, what we see in characters like Osho, right? We did that show on Osho maybe 3 years ago, right? Characters like Sadhguru and these Indian mystics. It's all kind of the same thing as you see with even, new age YouTube guru cult leaders, right? Exactly. You see like Aubrey Marcus, who I was exploring kind of the life and times of Aubrey Marcus, whose stepfather and mother invented a plastic poo nanny, like his family, this kid, Aubrey Marcus, who ended up making Onnit, right, and Alpha Brain and these companies with Joe Rogan. His family was really weird, man. It's like his mom was she calls herself a doctor, but she's actually an acupuncturist. And I'm not saying acupuncture is completely illegitimate. I think there are, obviously benefits to acupuncture, but that realm, just like chiropractics, there are a lot of chiropractors who do great work, but then there's some chiropractors who are really kooky and kind of into some weird mystical stuff. That I'm not saying that stuff is fake. I'm saying like it can be real.
Yeah, I mean, it typically spills over into people trying to push new age stuff.
Yeah, new age and occult ideas, right? Like, so you see his mom, she was this weird acupuncturist. His stepdad invented this plastic pocket poo nanny called the Fleshlight that Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus marketed to, young Coomers for maybe it was like 10 years ago. That relationship between,
until you told me that.
Yeah, that relationship ended up blossoming into Onnit, which is one of the biggest supplement companies that sells, supplements that on paper look like they might be kind of cool, but you look at the actual dosages in there, it's really below dosage. I mean, most of it's probably placebo. But all that aside, Aubrey Marcus, he's into the transformative festivals. He's into the Burning Man. He's into he's promoting polyamorous relationships. He's a big advocate of obviously not having families because he's had multiple marriages, or maybe just one marriage, but multiple polyamorous relationships and never children, right? The promotion of these alternative lifestyles usually leads to polysex cults, right? Like you saw, didn't Father Yod, wasn't that what kind of his thing?
Yeah.
So polysex cults, Osho, for instance, another one of these sex cults where Osho would promote the sterilization of the women in his cult, and he would force sterilize the men. He would tell them you have to get vasectomies. Sadhguru, another one of these, the World Economic Forum kind of front man guru who goes to the WEF and talks about, all these other religious leaders, they want more souls, but I want less souls. He laughs like a demon.
He's a son suntan demonic Santa Claus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's super tan Santa Claus. So all these people, isn't it weird that all these new age gurus kind of have the same shtick? Alternative families and alternative lifestyles, basically worship of the self, right? Under the guise of getting rid of your own ego. It's really about the worship of your own gratification.
Right, it's the opposite of that. It's the, yeah.
Your ego will be so tiny, it will be teeny, teeny, tiny. Your ego will be so small, smaller than everybody's micro ego. Your ego will be the smallest than all of them.
Well, we did that video back and forth 3 years ago about the DMT trip report, where we were, we were bragging about whose ego was less, right?
Which mine was, obviously.
Right. You were the most humble. Really? You won the humble competition. So,
but the most humble out of all of them.
And I really like that you brought up this the new phenomena that we're seeing, which is the pipeline of New Age festival, blah blah blah, mixed with self-help into the YouTube guru phenomenon, which is emerging now. So this is where we get this new crop of. I think the reason this is working is that it's just people who aren't hideously ugly like Deepak Chopra and the other classic new ager.
They're not handsome like Jay and I,
right?
They're like not ugly.
Yeah, like we're talking about 9s or 10s like myself. People like
9.6. You're 9.6.
Okay, thank you.
Me like 9.65.
Okay,
9.67. But go ahead.
Seal Twan, aka Till Swan, right?
Seal Twan.
So she's So Seal Twan, we're talking, she's probably a 8 or 7. I don't know what she is. I'm just joking, but I think they're rising in popularity because they're reasonably attractive people. They don't look like goblins, but back in the day, you could just be a goblin face dude, and if Oprah promoted you, you were headed to the top. So you get Paul Kalo, remember him? That dude's a goofy looking dude. The guy that wrote the Alchemy, Paul Kalo.
No, not familiar.
Who's some other?
Sounds
gurus?
like competition.
Tony
man.
Robbins.
Tony
Robbins,
started.
right?
Yeah.
So we got Tony Robbins, we got Paul Kalo, we got Coelho. There's a ton of these. People were messaging us saying, "Hey, cover so and so, cover." There's like 10 different gurus I've never even heard of.
And they're multiplying constantly.
Right. There's
right?
they all have like 1 million followers too. It's like, how are these people getting all these followers? There's a black dude.
I think you and I talked about this before. It's like social media really is a like a black box for just cult generation, right? Like YouTube is one of the most powerful tools for these cult leaders.
Right.
And you mentioned the pipeline. I mean, there really is this kind of, there's like I don't even know how you would map this or graph this, but there is like a slippery slope between
Eckhart Tolle. That's the other guy I was trying to think of.
Okay, yeah. Well, you got Joseph Campbell, like similar to Eckhart Tolle, the hero's journey, and these people, the self-help gurus, the entrepreneurial gurus, the spiritual gurus, the Eastern mysticism gurus, the evangelical preachers, right? They all use the same methods
right.
of, you talk really slow and maybe you reach up to a crescendo of emotion, and it's emotional manipulation. It's kind of like. It's basically kind of like witchcraft, right? It's just messing with people's emotions, messing with people's perception, using NLP, and planting thoughts and messing with those thoughts and emotional states in people. And YouTube is like this vehicle for that. Connor Murphy, right? Remember when he went nuts?
Oh, I was about to ask you about Connor Murphy. Yeah. So here you have the prankster fitness guru who decides, oh, now I'm doing ayahuasca every day and I'm God, basically is what he said.
It's always the same. It's always, oh, you're God, bro. I'm God. You're God. I'm God. And then he ends up within like a couple months, he ends up teaching women like tantric eye gazing. So he like gets women and like in his lap, and they're sitting there in these like sexual poses and staring in each other's eyes, and then they start like making out and stuff. And it's like, it's all just, it's funny because it's just people use these techniques to get the rocks off, basically. It's like these gurus are using these techniques in various ways to gratify their own like animalistic instincts very often. And they're always selling it on transcendence. They're always selling it as, well, you're going to transcend your animal instincts. So let's get in a big writhing pile.
Yeah, but it's just, come sleep with the guru, right? That's all it is.
Yeah. But you also see this at like a more subtle level too, like, there'll be a YouTube channel. I'm trying to think of an example, like Bobby's Perspective, right? Like he has this YouTube channel. He's talking about veganism. He realizes veganism is fake, adopts some arguments from Christians, claims he's Christian Orthodox, which doesn't even exist, right? He's an Orthodox Christian.
Right.
I am Christian Orthodox. Hey, all right, guys. I am on my journey in the mushroom. The mushroom told me that I will become a Christian. So, then all of a sudden he's a Christian, right? And then
now
whatever, this whittles out for a little bit, and now he's a Muslim, right? Now he's mixing his psychedelic stuff with promoting Islam.
And another way you can see that this was all kind of dubious is that, Bobby claims to have been Orthodox, and then like he goes to Mount Athos and he's like, I never heard of the doctrine of Trinity. Like you've never heard of the doctrine of Trinity. You were blown away by this. I mean, come on.
It's really sad. I mean, it's very obviously, you see people. I think there's something about like the hypnosis, the self-hypnosis of YouTube. Like it really does allow these YouTubers can like, they hypnotize themselves and they're watching themselves in this mirror, this kind of magical mirror that's speaking back to them and then giving them money, right? It's like the magic mirror is giving you money. It's giving words. Yeah. So, I think with guys like him, it's sad to see people get, completely wrapped up in the psychedelic stuff. And it's always these very irrational decisions to just embrace these strange ways of living. And you see that Connor Murphy, like, is a great example of just going nuts from, the drug use. And then not just that, but like the narcissism is a drug, right? The feedback from the audience telling you you're so hot, you're so brilliant, you're so open-minded, but you're so open-minded when your audience is being told what your audience wants to hear, of course. But you're closed-minded when you're not telling them what they want to hear. So there's this weird phenomenon of cult building that happens via the world of YouTube, and I think you've done a great job of showing like the teal swans and stuff. But Nature Boy,
you've done a great job of starting your cult.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, this is what we're getting. That's going to be the end. We're going to talk about our transformational festival. We're going to be doing.
There is going to be festivals in Nashville. Come to become one with Jayananda. I am Guru Jayananda. I will become one with you. I will get you to meditate and shit yourself out so that I can build you back up and fill you with the identities that I want you to have.
It's just like trail off and like falsetto.
Osho, like half the time, Osho looks like he's about to just fall asleep on stage.
Well, he is. He's so oped out, and he's opiated on for pharmaceutical drugs and freaking
Opsho. He's Opsho.
Opsho, the Opio show. So what I was talking a little bit about last night, as I'm looking at Aubrey Marcus, and he had this post that read like something that I would write as satire, right? It's a bunch of dudes bowing, they're on their hands and knees, doing full prostration, head to the ground.
I'm like, what?
Dude, it's like, how is this even real? So they're like 5 men on the ground, full prostration. And these chicks are dressed in their like hot yoga pants. Like they're all wearing their $2,000, deer skin, titty smasher shirts. And it's like, these girls,
deer skin
maybe
yoga
like,
pants.
Yeah, they're like they're skin tight yoga pants.
These are my yogurt pants, and they're made with 100% pure deer skins.
Sheep's milk.
It's good for the earth.
Pants. So like, and these dudes they're prostrating before them, telling them how sorry they are for the oppression that women have experienced, and how they're just goddesses. And he writes this like 5-paragraph Instagram post all about how the Transformational Festival features this groundbreaking and just amazing experiential, ecstatic.
That's weird.
All the keywords.
So. I mean, when I'll look this dude up after you mention him, and he looks like the typical, gym bro, who's into like festivals and, like you said, fitness. And then you're showing this image of them bowing before the goddess, and I'm like, why is it a gym bro bowing before the goddess? And it was hard to believe. It didn't even seem real.
Yeah, and it's it sounds surreal, But to me, it's like this is what's expected when you're around people that are in this world, that are into the Burning Man stuff. You hear a lot of talk about, the goddess, and I'm a goddess, and all the ladies are goddesses. You don't hear a lot about like the men are gods, except for from like in the Black conscious community, like that's pretty big. Even like even like Wu-Tang, like, yo, what up, God? Like, peace to the gods and the earths. That's like the 5% Nation of Islam stuff, which is basically New Age wrapped in Islamic terms, and marketed towards, kind of this like people who are maybe vulnerable to like a Black supremacy style weird worldview. But you don't hear like the New Age people in the white girl yogurt pants world. You don't hear them talk about the dudes being gods, but it's always the women are goddesses, right? They're just goddesses at the worst, and the ones who get into it, like, they exhale so much. This is the more you exhale and you talk, the more spiritually it's just
well, it's funny because when I read we were doing the Global Elite book series, and a few years ago I read Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna, and one of the first things he says is that the patriarchal logos phallic religion has to go away. That's the source of all of the wars and the fighting. It's toxic masculinity. And then he's like, the solution will be a new goddess-based religion, and that will promote the sacred feminine, right? And if we adopt the sacred feminine, this whole propaganda nonsense says, then we won't have wars. I mean, how silly is this? We're not going to have wars if we promote the sacred feminine. Excuse me, women subvert and fight against each other all the time, more than dudes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you look at this phenomenon and you notice these trends, and you see this getting worse and worse, and you see it going more into the normie sphere. I mean, before it was like, it was the chicks with the fake indigenous names, like, I used to be, my name used to be Crystal.
My name's Fairy Assbuckle.
Yeah, like Crystal wasn't new age enough for me. That was my slave name. And then, when I drank the Aya, I drank Mama Aya. Mother Ayahuasca told me that my name would be Moonbeam Cootershine. And it's like and it's always these like strange, like it always has like moon in it, and it's always got this really cool.
I like that one. That was really good. Audience, do you like Crystal Assbuckle or would you say Cooter
Moonbeam Cootershine? Moonbeam Cootershine.
You had a good one on your live stream. It was like armpit hair. I forget what it was. Armpit hair.
My name is Pocahontas. Polka armpit hair. Polka armpit. I'm trying to find.
Yeah, that's it. That is interesting. So the giving of a new name is another thing too. That's often in not just in the Orthodox world, but also in the occult world. You get a new name in the occult world too, as part of your new identity, right? This is your higher self and all this kind of nonsense. So basically, New Age is kind of like watered down occult, right, to like make it more palatable and get people into it. And then I think the idea is that you'll go deeper and deeper into it, and the whole thing, Crowley's whole thing is you'll become a god. That's the whole message of his sex magic, is this idea that is the pathway to godhood. But the weird part is, by the way, really it just means sleep with the cum leader, right? That's the path to godhood. So on one level, a lot of this stuff is just people trying to get laid, right? It's just people scamming and all this. But people fall for this. A lot of people are really into this. Is this that Aubrey Marcus festival thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see it up on the?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Glad you had that.
So I mean, and I like that you said that. Like a lot of it is just people trying to get laid, but then there's a
more serious element to it. Yeah.
Yeah, there are levels to it, because that seems to be a part of it for most of these people. But then there are ones who are like, once the sexual gratification is not enough for somebody, right? Like, I mean, there are a lot of people who like figured out how to get women to yield themselves to them when they were like 18, right? You figure out certain things, and it's like, well, that doesn't satisfy anymore. And when that doesn't satisfy anymore, it sometimes becomes more subtle manipulation, more subtle abuse of people. And I think like the new age world and a lot of these gurus, it takes a darker path, right? Like Nature Boy, he got real dark with it, right? He's got a whole harem, right? It's not just about like having the harem for him.
Oh yeah, I want to ask you about Nature Boy. Yeah, that one's crazy.
He was, you know, for those of you who don't know Nature Boy, I'm sorry for sending you down this rabbit hole, but he started out as kind of a vegan guru, and then he took it in a real dark direction. Like he had a whole harem. He just got arrested. He's in jail now. He's awaiting charges of imprisonment, imprisonment and like kidnapping, and illegally publishing without consent the pornographic materials, to say it nicely. Like I guess he was live streaming on Instagram his encounters with his harem, and it turned into this really dark thing where he was even wanting the men, right? Like he was even trying to gratify himself with the men's, and he started getting all effeminate. Like it was really this weird spiritual thing with him. He started getting very effeminate and aggressively, aggressively, as you can switch hitting, I guess you call it.
Okay.
And he was, of course, he's God. He's telling everyone, I'm God.
Yeah,
so
I watched a few videos of that guy, and I couldn't believe how wild it was, right? And I mean, it was like, you think, is this a parody? Is this a satire? It's like that Tim and Eric skit of Zone Theory, but it's like, no, this guy's for real. Like, he's nuts.
He's for real. He's in it. Like, and he lived in the suburbs too. Like, in the end of it, he's renting a house. He's got like 6 women living with him and like 5 dudes. And you see the guys get gradually more feminized as he's breaking them down and brainwashing them. And he would say stuff like, yo, we cats. Yo, I'm like a panther. I'm a panther, dog. He's talking to dudes like, yo, I'm a panther, and you a cat too. We gotta act like cats, yo. And he's like, we can snuggle. We be snuggling like kitty cats, y'all. I'm a panther. You a lion. Let's purr up on each other, dog. You know, it's like really.
Come to
aggressive.
my kitty snuggle cult. Okay. All right.
It's got really weird. So, you know, and he combined, you know, the food deprivation and veganism for a long time. He left that. Drugs and alcohol. It was mostly weed and liquor in the latter part of his cult. But it's always the same thing. He started out though, Jay.
Dyer, right?
Jay Dyer. I'll do the NLP technique where I
please just keep repeating my name and then
Jay Dyer. He starts out Jay Dyer with he started out with he was said the black woman is God. The black woman is God. And then it slowly became, well, the black woman's getting out of line. So then it became, well, I'm God. The black woman's got to serve me and worship me. So he's mixing his theology all the time and changing it constantly. But really what it was all about was get his rocks off, but then getting his rocks off as far as like the desire for psychic dominance. It's like this.
Yeah, it's a God complex, control freak, Messiah, like just it's a demonic delusion, basically.
Yeah, I don't know how to put it. It's like, you know, the sexual thing for these gurus, like that seems like the lower level, and it's kind of it's animalistic and it's kind of like bestial. But then it
evolves into something more.
Yeah, it's like it's bestial, but at like a demonic spiritual level, where it's like Jim Jones. Yeah, he was doing weird stuff, but also it was about way more than just physical sexual gratification. It was like a spiritual, defiling kind of, right? It's almost like the demons want to defile you spiritually, physically too. And that's like the Nature Boy. It got dark with Nature Boy, but I've been kind of in and out following him for years.
Well, there does seem to be a progression of the lighter stuff to the darker stuff. We see that, for example, with Mother God, who started as just kind of the festival girl, and then the weird kind of diet stuff. There's always that weird diet element, which you pointed out with Nature Boy too, where they start saying, "Oh, you can only eat this, or you can never eat this," right? And then that makes people nutrient deficient, emaciated. They're not thinking straight, and then then they're led into the next phase where the guru feels like, "Oh, now I'm a god, now I'm goddess," and then it gets even darker to the point of like, "Oh, we need to transcend these bodies and all drink this Kool-Aid," this kind of stuff. Right. I'm serious. Like there seems to be this progression.
Yes. Well, and I wish I had the quote next to me. But in the book that I covered by Dostoevsky, Demons, I did like a 2-part.
It was great.
5-6 hours of lecture on this.
Well, it's going to get to the suicide, so it gets to the suicide element.
Yes, exactly. So the Kirillov is the character, and he has this insane rant about how the ultimate act, the ultimate nihilistic act, is essentially is suicide. And he talks about, well, if we kill ourselves, we will become God. And it's just, it's dark, and it's a strange passage in the book by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Demons here. I'm gonna see if I could find just a quick snippet of it.
I feel like you're not in alignment with me. I feel like you're not in alignment with me, Tristan. And if you're not in alignment with me, maybe you need to just unalive yourself.
So you just keep doing Teal Swan
That's
for like
my
2 minutes.
Yeah,
but
that's my teal.
I want to find this passage from
I feel like you're dealing with trauma, and you're taking it out on me because you're jealous. I feel like you're jealous of my spiritual attainment, and you feel inadequate, and so you're taking it out upon me when really this is the problem between you and your mother. Are you not in alignment with me? See, Tristan's broken. Like, he's hobbled over, broken down from the NLP.
Yeah,
I've been using I'm using Seal Twan's NLP approach.
Well, yeah, no. What for those of you who wonder what I'm looking for this passage in Dostoevsky's book, and it really illustrates how the ultimate nihilistic and demonic act truly is to kill yourself. So the character.
By the way, we're not saying to do that. We're just for the algorithm, Mr. Robot. We're not saying to do that. We're.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Exactly. No, it's. I mean, it's the most stupid thing you could do. But of course, from the the Orthodox Christian worldview, that's what the demons ultimately want, right? I mean, nihilism is the ultimate demonic philosophy that leads to, the Saint Justin Popovich said that deicide always leads to self suicide, right? Deicide leads to that. And so anyways, the passages with Kirillov and Dostoevsky's Demons get at that. But I wanted to kind of go back to you mentioned like the goddess worship stuff, and we're talking about that. If you don't mind, I'd like to just read this beautiful poem from Aubrey Marcus here.
Okay.
A little snippet of this. So he says, every year at Fit for Service in Sedona, Stefanos Sandos, Christine Hassler guide us through a process where men bow at the feet of the women present. We bow for the thousands of years of disrespect and oppression of the feminine. We bow for our own unconscious participation in a system which has advantaged men. We bow for our own lapses and failures to acknowledge the divine feminine within and without. For the world to return to balance, the feminine wing of humanity needs to be restored to its full divine potentiation. I have said it many times before, blah, blah, blah. He lists these goddesses. To every goddess I meet, like blah, blah, blah. He lists these 5 goddesses. And if you click on their thing, they're all yoga chicks. And they all have like, a plant medicine and body work. They're all body workers. I'm a goddess and I'm really good at working with your body. It's always this like weird sexualization stuff. I will fight for them and support them with full heart until my last breath. It's the only thing that truly motivates me. So he goes on and on about, how the sacred feminine is just so important. But they're literally bowing before and worshiping this goddess, this yet to manifest goddess. And it's what's weird is when you read about like the French revolutionaries and the 19th century revolutionaries in Russia, in France, and throughout Europe, you see that this same thing was happening back then. So I got a passage here from the chapter on the role of women in the book Fire in the Minds of Men. So there's Fire in the Minds of Men by James H. Billington. I really can't suggest, I'm mandating this book. This is a mandate. This is a government mandate. The new health measures, you have to read this book because it's really does break down the worldview, philosophy, and history of the revolutionaries in a fascinating way. So the idea of total liberation. He's talking about Fourier here, Charles Fourier, who was this revolutionary socialist, and some of the Saint Simonians who were influenced by Henry Comte de Saint-Simon, and they were looking for a female messiah. They were looking for this feminine messiah. The Saint Simonians led the way by proclaiming that the coming social revolution would be led by a female
Yeah, this is crazy.
messiah.
I'd never heard this kind of stuff. I mean, I used that book. I've had it since grad school, but I never read the whole thing. So, Fire in the Minds of Men is a classic. It is a necessary have. But
It's one that you could spend like years kind of digesting.
Yeah, I never heard of these female messiahs, and so we're talking like centuries ago. The same manifestations were out there, right? I mean, even today's transformational festival New Age stuff comes directly out of these goofball revolutionaries who were, for the most part, insane. Like mentally, a lot of these people ended up locked up, right?
No, they're legitimately mentally ill. Like even Rousseau. Did you know that Rousseau was like a weirdo pervert obsessed with exposing himself to women? And he used to expose his male parts to ladies in the streets at night. And he was obsessed with getting spanked. He was just this weirdo. He was obsessed with being a naughty little pervert boy and getting reprimanded by like, I don't know, there's some woman who used to reprimand him for being a weirdo when he's a kid. So all these like romanticists and so-called philosophers, which philosophy is basically just I don't know, justification for how to be an atheistic coomtard. And Rousseau was one of these characters. But the Saint Simonians, they're looking for a female messiah. Their leader Barol proclaimed himself the Saint Peter of the feminine messiah and saw favorable omens in volcanic eruptions, the appearance of Halley's Comet, and the death of Napoleon II, who was, he said, the last male messiah. And he was looking for so they're looking for this.
Well, you had a great point in your stream too about the extremes of, on the one hand, so many of these people are these absurd level Enlightenment rationalists as part of the revolutionary philosophers. Yet at the same time, they're immersed in and obsessed with these completely absurd augury and superstition and divination and proto New Age concepts, which have nothing to do with the rationalism. So they were all out of whack and contradictory. Their worldview didn't make sense.
Well, I think you've done such a great job of exposing this and showing that the Enlightenment philosophy really is kind of irrational in its elevation of reason, because when you know, as you've shown so many of your debates,
it deifies reason while saying there's no gods.
And also like, well, what is reason? Is this physical? Can you measure reason?
What molecules make up reason?
So and they seemingly never really thought about these contradictions, but a lot of them really did live it out, where some of them would go to the extreme of, well, rationalism, positivism, everything that's real must be measured and experienced through my own personal perception. And then the other extreme is like just full on occultism and, you know, mysticism, channeling.
Well, there's it's a short step between, for example, even Bertrand Russell, you know, supposedly totally materialist atheist, in Scientific Outlook, he says, well, we can't actually prove that there's an external world. All that we know is what's presented to our senses, and that's something that's only in the mind. And so he basically says, strictly speaking, we don't even know anything other than what my mind projects. So he admits solipsism, but says, I'm not a solipsist, he says, but we have to say that that's all we can ever know. And then that's just one small step away from like, my mind is God. Everything that I say, God is me, and everything comes from my mind. You see, that's just a small step away.
Yeah, please, if anybody have Valium, God needs 2 more Valium before he start getting shakes.
You are manifestation of my mind. You do not exist unless my mind make you to exist.
So you know, this goddess worship you see in you know, the Burning Man crowd, the goddess worship you see in, like, I don't know, does Teal Swan talk about that, like the goddess?
Oh yeah, she says she's the incarnation of the Wicca goddess.
Wow. Yeah. So this is nothing new. Like you see in 19th century, you know, 1800s revolutionaries, the same search. So another Saint Simonian argued that India would produce more sensuous goddesses, whereas one Saint Simonian said that the goddess would be a Jewish woman because it would produce, instead of the bankers of kings and the industrial and political link among peoples, a goddess. And then, you know, this other one said, well, the India produces all these beautiful goddess figures, so we must look to the East. But then also this idea of androgyny is seminal and very important for this like alchemical mixture of the sexes. And it's funny, these people get obsessed with androgyny. They really end up leaning towards like, it's just about feminization of men. It's never about like, well, let's make women more manly. It's very often just about, well, let's make men real pretty. You know, like you look at Aubrey Marcus and these like the aesthetics that they start to exude. It's all this just like, you know, beautiful jewelry, and we got rings and like and my beautiful native looking all hemp $1,000 hippie outfits. It's the feminization of men is a big part of this. But then they get obsessed with androgyny, and then getting rid of the so-called male authoritarianism of the past and moving towards a goddess or an androgynous god. So then you've also got Enfantin, which his name is spelled Enfantin, Enfantin. Enfantin, I guess is how you'd say it if you're you use French. But he was into the idea of the I'm quoting here again, total liberation and of gratifying the passions in gourmet phalansteries, which is basically like, that's the Burning Man, right? Burning Man is all about this intentional temporary community where everybody just indulges the passions, lives their fantasy. It's Disneyland plus psychedelics plus fantasy land, Coomer outfits, and everybody dressing in a hypersexualized way, and they even have orgies and stuff there. So the total liberation and gratifying of passions in gourmet phalansteries, which phalansteries, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like almost like military units, right? Like little autonomous groups of people, small communities, kind of like military attaches, where you'll have like you'll have one unit and it's 1,000 people. So a phalanstery, I think that's what they mean by that. And the emancipation of women from their limited familial roles was a particularly pleasing aspect of his system. And the term feminism was apparently introduced by Fourier. So, feminism and the revolutionaries, this goes hand in hand. Feminism and the destruction of family. Obviously, this has been explored for generations. Many people have pointed this out, but the goddess worship.
Yeah, that was another important thing that came up in your stream, which was that they all seem to want to rebel against traditional natural relations. So family needs to become alternative family. Male-female relationships become an alternative relationship. Society needs to adopt. So the idea is that the existing structures are all oppressive, and the revolution must be total, and everything must be overturned. And so all forms of alternative ways of living must be promoted in order to overthrow the existing order. So you can see how obviously just satanic and subversive that is.
Yeah, exactly. And
what's interesting is that what the 60s people and the people today are saying is not new. It's exactly what these revolutionaries in the 1700s, 1800s that Tristan's talking about were saying.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, right? And even these ideas that they're promoting, they're often talking about, well, this return to the natural state. They're kind of this like Rousseauian return to the past. And Weishaupt was also into the same thing. They're wiping away of, the structures of culture.
Everything
must society.
Be wiped away, yeah.
Natural, which is why you get, Nature Boy, right? Like Nature Boy is all about, we got to get back to nature, y'all. We got to get back to nature. We living in Babylon. All your family, that's Babylon. You got to leave your family. You got to leave your husband. You got to leave Jay Dyer. Jay Dyer is Babylon, right? You got to get out of that. You got to get your new family.
Put the white people on the space boat. Gonna make the white people go into space. Yeah.
What's the new structure? Well, it's anything but traditional Christian family structure. Anything except that. And what is the new thing to be worshiped? Well, it's anything but Christ, right? Well, you can have Jesus, but Jesus is an ascended master, and you'll be an ascended master too. But you can't have the triune God. You cannot have Orthodox Christianity, right? And this, when you read like Fire in the Minds of Man, you notice.
Yeah, well, some people in the chat, real quick, let me note that a lot of people are making the perceptive point that I made for a long time, which is that all of that philosophy, that revolutionary philosophy, is premised on the idea that there's no such things as essences or natures. There's no objective metaphysical realities like natures or essences.
Nominalism.
Yeah, and so everything is a construct, ultimately, is where this worldview leads, which is why it leads to postmodernism, which is what Terence McKenna says, that postmodernism and the idea that we construct reality, he says, is magical thinking. And it's the exact same idea of the solipsism of these empiricists and these natural of these enlightenment empiricists and eventually these revolutionaries, is that, well, all I know is empirical sense data, so there's no actual meaning to the world that's out there. It's all a construct. So all we have to do is clean the slate, wipe it to go back to a blank slate. All of society can just be reset, a great reset. That's why the Illuminists called it year zero in the French Revolution. It was just a reset of everything, because they believe that everything is just a construct. So why not just reconstruct things in a, quote, fair, balanced way? And it's just idiotic. And they're all people who are mentally ill, who are rebelling against reality itself. They're in rebellion against what's real, against truth, against logic, against reason. And they refuse to admit that they are bound by the principles of nature, logic, and reason. And that's why they have to rebel against it, because they're impelled by a rebellious demonic force.
Nailed it. You nailed it. I mean, this is really what it is, right? And they're rebelling against even gender roles, right? So the Saint Simonians, back in, here's 1837, right? Saint Simonian feminists disrupted a speech by Robert Owen in Paris in 1837 in a manner foreshadowing later internal protests within the left against, quote, male chauvinism. The young woman who denounced the absence of women from Owen's podium was challenging the identification of radical social reform with the arid rationalism and exclusively masculine organization of Owen's principal host, César Moreau, founder of the Society of Statistique Universelle and editor of the Masonic Universe, which in France, l'univers maçonnique.
Yeah, the Grand Orient Lodge of France was the most revolutionary. They wanted to have, total equality amongst the sexes. And that's why the Jacobins and the Illuminists were radical feminists. And so they were the first to get this rolling way before anybody else in the modern world was feminist. And the first famous feminist is Mary Wollstonecraft, who was part of that. I think she was part of the first or second revolution. I forget which one she was a part of, but she's like the proto-feminist.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, I mean, later on in the Russian Revolution, you also see, a lot of the elite getting involved in the Grand Orient Lodge within, the aristocracy of Russia and the Grand Orient Lodge, as well as the British Masonic Lodge, which is, definitely has a different MO and a little bit of a different, slightly different, but not that different worldview to the Grand Orient Lodge. That's what the February Revolution was directed by. The February Revolution was brought about by, the Masonic occult,
Grand Orient,
degenerate, very enslaved to the passions aristocracy in Russia, and then it got out of hand, right? Isn't this funny? So then the Bolsheviks ended up taking over in the October Revolution, and first it was just, well, let's have a constitutional republic, right? We need a constitutional republic, limited powers to the monarch, and power to the people. People get the power, and then it gets completely out of hand, and they end up purging most of those initial revolutionaries from the February Revolution.
Right. Yeah, that's why a lot of those revolutionaries ended up murdered. I forget what stream we talked about. Marat is murdered as not being revolutionary enough, right? I think you covered this too, where you were talking about how the revolutionaries would look at the other revolutionaries, and if he was a little overweight, he's a bourgeoisie because he's overweight. Kill him. Right. Yeah,
he looks well fed. He must be bourgeoisie.
Yeah, kill him.
I mean, even Robespierre ends up, falling prey to the guillotine himself. So you see, the revolution is endless. The revolution does not stop. They just keep revolutionizing.
Well, that's what O'Brien tells Winston. He says the revolution is never ending, and it's a wheel that crushes the previous generation. It's like just a crushing wheel grinding up the previous generation of revolutionaries.
Yeah. And when I did stream recently, and I talked about Bonneville. I talked about the characters of Bonneville, of Lenin, and Babeuf. And they tied this in with Dostoevsky's book Demons. And Bonneville considered himself and was considered kind of like the first apostle of the revolutionary religion. And he took this revolutionary technique that Babeuf, who called himself Gracchus Babeuf, who was kind of this Illuminist revolutionary, failed revolutionary for the most part, he took his work and basically extended it and kind of blasted it out all throughout Europe. And his one of the ideas that he kind of spearheaded was the unfinished revolution and the uncompleted revolution that could really never be completed, right? It's constant. And then I guess you've covered Huxley and Julian Huxley and Aldous Huxley really well on your channel here. The Final Revolution. But really, Like, how do you, it's kind of like with Marx never really describes what the structure of his final, so-called utopian state was. He says it's supposed to wither, but how is it supposed to maintain this state? Right? It's like, well, what is it called? The dictatorship of the proletariat will take care of all the counter-revolutionaries. I guess maybe he expects that they'll just all disappear at some point, or maybe it's that the reign of terror never ends. It's like the reign of terror never ends.
I think he thought that mechanization would solve all the problems of the need for the proletariat and the workers.
Okay, you can have a reign of terror by Skynet constantly forever.
Yeah, basically. Right? Well, I think he thought that there wouldn't be problems anymore because society's problems would be solved by equalitarianism and mechanization. So there wouldn't be.
What if somebody has false consciousness, which is right? False consciousness was when a worker does not realize that they need to be a revolutionary, like when they don't identify with the revolution, I guess they call it false consciousness. So what if somebody just, gets suddenly false consciousness, according to Marx? I guess they would just have.
Well, there wouldn't be workers anymore because you don't have the need for the proletariat anymore. So people can supposedly just be living free. You don't need these things anymore. I mean, it's silly, but that's
and the way you get there is the terror campaign, I guess, until eventually.
Well, there's going to be the phases of big state communism, and then Marx thought that would eventually go away, and then you would get the libertarian phase. So,
but how the transition works, it's like, okay, well, there's no. It's like just magically one day it'll works just happen.
Well, he thought it was like this sort of process of history, like because the Middle Ages and feudalism gave way to capitalism, the next phase would be big state communism, and then the final phase would be full true equalitarian libertarian worldview.
Which is weird because when he's preaching to these people, they're kind of already in this industrial capitalist state, right? Like he's telling, the British are there. Russia wasn't yet an industrial capitalist state, but I guess Marx at one point actually did concede that, well, maybe the peasantry could end up becoming kind of like the dictatorship of the proletariat, skipping the capitalist stage in Russia. He was open to that apparently, but like he's basically telling everybody, it's like you coming out right now. Like it's kind of the same thing as Elon Musk and these people who are like, yeah, we're just going to have AI, everything's going to be automated, fully automated luxury communism. But it's like, well, how do we get there? Well, don't worry about that, but it's just going to be this natural process.
It'll just happen because like people will awaken and they'll figure it out and they'll get woke and then everybody will be equal and everybody will share. I mean, that's how stupid they are when they think about this stuff.
And then, but historically, it's like, okay, they get woke and then there's a reign of terror that seems to just be ever escalating and until the human will is crushed. And
there's a weird essay by Jefferson where he seemed to actually agree with the Jacobins, and so Jefferson has this essay where he says a violent bloodshed revolution is necessary in every generation. So he actually, he seems to have actually been a full-on Jacobin. I mean, I don't know, but Jefferson seemed to argue that like, how will this occur? We'll have a giant like guillotine beheading period. That's how it will occur.
Well, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of patriots constantly.
Yeah, but there's another quote that he has, a famous quote that he says that a violent, bloody revolution is a good thing at least once a generation or something like that. It's some quote like that.
I don't know if you caught. I forget which stream it was I did recently. I don't know if obviously you're required to listen to, the 20 hours of streams that I've done in the last few weeks, but there was something from Jefferson. There's actually a letter where he's kind of praising Weishaupt's group. And saying,
that's part of it. And then I'm aware of that. Then there's an essay he wrote too. I could get it. It's in a liberalism and its critics.
Cool.
So go ahead. I'll get that. Let me show you that book. It's really neat.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Cool. So, moving on a little bit to back to the goddess worship, right? And these proto-feminists and revolutionary figures. You have a really interesting one that came out of the Saint Simonians, and her name was Flora Tristan. And Flora Tristan was a Peruvian. She's a Peruvian
really
lady.
Suspicious name, I think, kind of right on.
I know her name is really sus.
Right.
You can tell that she's going to end up being a degenerate. Just
did she change it to Tristana? That's something.
I don't think so. Okay. I don't. That's her problem. That's her problem.
Gotcha.
So she was the daughter of a Peruvian aristocrat. She claims that she descended from Montezuma.
By the way, you know what's funny? I have to interject here. almost all of these degenerates, insane revolutionaries, they're hardly ever from working class. They're not. They're unrealistic. They're idealistic. They're what do you call the kids that live on a
trust fund babies?
They're like trust fund babies of the 1800s, basically.
Right. And then you see the same thing now, right? Like you look at guys like, where did I look? I'm not trying, I don't despise Aubrey Marcus, but I did use him as an example of somebody who these revolutionary ideas flow through. He's promoting polyamory. He's promoting, sex toys to teenage coomers. He's promoting the destruction of family and promoting the destruction of our minds with drugs and with these transformational festivals, right? Now, I don't dislike him. You want to obviously hope that all these people will kind of, turn away from this nonsense and embrace the truth. But, you look at him, and his dad was like this. His dad made a bunch of money on oil futures, right? His mom and his stepdad invented this gross sex toy called the Fleshlight, and he helped to market it. And now his job is to get people to take ayahuasca and break up their families to be in polycults.
It reminds me of this one clip. I've not watched a whole bunch of Bentino, but somebody sent me a clip of him. And there's a clip of him where this girl is like, I'm just having a really hard time with like, what should I do with my life, and like finding a job and getting established and finances. And his sage wisdom is like, why do you need a job? Like, why do you need a place to live? Like,
I've never had a job.
He goes, like, just go live with somebody, like live with your family or something. That's the sage wisdom. So what I'm getting at is, and I was
just get $10,000 a month from Patreon.
Yeah, right. Like start a channel or whatever. And I was watching another guru the other day who was talking about, in passing, who was talking about communal living. He's like, why don't we just like, if we just lived in communes, if everybody just lived in a communal living, like we wouldn't even care about having stuff or whatever. And I'm thinking how just immature this line of thinking is. Like, I mean, people want to have a family. They want to, I mean, imagine you can't raise a family in a commune. I mean, it sounds like a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
Just how impractical and unrealistic these idiots are.
Well, these communes too, where all the boundaries are dissolved and people are into all sorts of weirdo stuff. It's like, these are hotbeds for child abuse. You want to raise your kid
there? Yeah. I mean, are you nuts? Right.
Right, like Osho, like imagine raising your kid at freaking Osho's little ranch out in Oregon, right? Where everything is filmed. They're having these crazy ecstatic orgy things. Like, no way would you want to put a child in that environment. It's absolutely insane.
So
yeah, Flora Tristan. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, to be specific, turns out it's Hannah Arendt, the famous liberal philosopher. She has an essay called The Revolutionary Tradition and Its Lost Treasure. And I think that's the one where she goes into Jefferson's call for blood. I think that's it. But it's in this is one of our grad texts that we had, Liberalism and Its Critics. And it's just a bunch of essays from the liberal tradition and then critics of the liberal tradition. So you have Isaiah Berlin, John Rawls, Dworkin, Hayek, Nozick, libertarians in there, for example. And then you have critics of this, Alistair McIntyre, the famous modern virtue philosopher, Michael Sandel, Charles Taylor, the Hegelian, and then Hannah Arendt. But that Hannah Arendt essay, I think, is the one that talks about the Jeffersonian call for, the only way to avoid tyranny is to have like mass bloody guillotine revolutions.
The only way to avoid tyranny is to have total tyranny.
Exactly.
Decentralized tyranny. Oh, it's decentralized.
It's like, cool. Well, it's like the point that you make, that the vegans make, right? Like we could totally end suffering if we just like ended all the beings. Like if there was no creatures, there would no longer be suffering.
Well, I mean, veganism is really just the logical end result of utilitarianism and the denial of Christ, right? And of man's place as being made in the image and likeness of God. Veganism is that.
Bro, like if we killed everybody, like nobody would hurt anymore. There wouldn't be any more hurting.
It'd be so sick. It'd be so sick if we're all just dead, bro.
Dude, that would be so sick if we were all just dead or whatever.
Dude, wouldn't it be so sick if we just got rid of everyone that I don't like? That'd be so sick, dude.
Like I woke up thinking about if you were dead, that would be so sick, right? Like you should just like die.
Sometimes I wish you were dead because like sometimes like you make me feel insecure or whatever. But like, dude, if there's a reign of terror, I would like let you not die for a while, bro.
I feel like you're just not in alignment with me right now, and like maybe you should be unalived. You should be unalived. That's her term, by the way. Unalived.
Unalive.
You should be unalive.
If we could just unalive like 95% of the population, like, we could all just have like a great utopia. We would have bread and land for everybody. Have you ever heard anything like this? It's a totally new idea.
Right. With the crazy part, like nobody thinks about O'Brien in 1984 coming to you in the garb of a guru, right? I mean, O'Brien is like, I just want to kill everybody, and like, but if he just wore a guru outfit, like everybody would be like, yes, kill me, O'Brien, yes,
Queen, slay Queen,
slay Queen. We just need to kiss everyone.
I mean, this is how Sadhguru comes to you. This is how Osho came, right? Now, it sucks that you can't play any clips of Osho, right? You're not even allowed to play clips of Osho, but he was an advanced, like, demonic revolutionary. Here's, if O'Brien comes to you dressed like this guy,
listen to this.
Then
listen to this. I think this is what I was looking for. This is Hannah Arendt, the famous philosopher, commenting on Jefferson's thing. Had Jefferson's plan of elementary republics been carried out, it would have exceeded by far the feeble germs of the new form of government in which we are able to direct the sections of the Paris Commune and the popular sciences during the French Revolution. However, in Jefferson's political imagination, if Jefferson's political imagination surpassed them in insight and scope, then his thoughts were still traveling in the same direction. Jefferson's plan and the French Revolutionary Society of the Republics anticipated with an almost weird precision those councils and societies and rites which were able to make their appearance in every genuine revolution throughout the 19th and 20th century. That's not the quote I was looking for. I thought that was the quote where it was about the call for the never-ending bloody revolution. Never mind. I'm sorry. That was the wrong quote. My bad.
Okay. I mean, you're being billed for all the time wasted. So
corruption and perversion are more likely to occur in an egalitarian republic. That's my notes. Designed to 2013. Anyway,
the egalitarian republic, right? It's always the equality.
Exactly right.
Liberty,
so
fraternity,
the idea is that what she's basically saying is that perfect equality the peace will only come when we have perfect equality. Is the idea of the revolutionaries, and that's why they think
equality.
Well, that's why they think that you have to kill everybody because they're the ones that are. That's it's the people that don't get the revolutionary consciousness that are the roadblock to the utopia being set up. That's the idea. So that's why you have to get rid of them.
And who are those? Those are the people who believe in God.
Yeah.
Those are the
any of those things. Family, dads, right? Private property. Yeah.
False consciousness.
There you go. Exactly. The false consciousness. Right.
So then, like Flora Tristan, right? This is one of these goddess women, and she actually believed that she was like a messiah. She ended up she traveled to London. She ended up becoming really close with Eliphas Levi, who drew the famous Baphomet that's used in Masonic lodges to this day, and people love that image because it is an androgynous, demonic, goat-headed, androkumer who's like it's a disgusting image. Please don't even look it up. It's really gross, but she was good friends with him, and she was into this idea of androgyny, of mashing together male and female, and of a female messiah. She went to the House of Lords disguised as a Turk, and then went to the famous lunatic asylum called Bedlam. And on that visit to this famous lunatic asylum, she appears to have acquired her sense of a messianic calling. So she goes to a lunatic asylum and figures out that she's the female messiah. And she believed that the word proletariat is more than just the economic category of propertyless workers, but also the moral mission of saving humanity of all of its divisions. So the proletariat's not just the workers, bro. It's everyone. It's the dudes who identify as the lady dudes. It's the freaking it's all the minorities, all this, that. It's everybody who is marginalized and who doesn't accept the patriarchy. So it's just like this call to all revolutionaries, everybody embittered and enraged at life, at reality, at biology, at God, for any reason. That's all the proletariat. And the Saint Simonians and Flora Tristan were obsessed with the fusion of male and female, and then she wanted to recombine Eve with Adam, and then declared in 1838 during the Feast of Assumption, which on the Roman Catholic new calendar, she changed that day to what she called the first day of the year of Evada, which is combining the words Eve and Adam. Evada. I mean, it's just
this is an old Gnostic idea. The idea that somehow male and female is bad, and it needs to be transcended by the original primordial androgyny, right? That's actually in Darwinism too. The idea is that the original protozoa was non-gendered, and there's this assumption that, oh well, if we can just get back to that primordial unity, which is also a Neoplatonic doctrine, a Gnostic doctrine, undergirds Darwinian thought. All of this is just nonsense. It's all just fraught with metaphysical assumptions that, on what basis should we believe that? Why are we supposed to believe that primordial unity is better than male and female? I mean, okay, maybe you're right, but how do you prove their show this? It's just an assumption.
Right. This chick even wrote a book with the kind of Kabbalist magician Abba Constant, whose name was also Eliphas Levi. So she wrote a book with Eliphas Levi.
Well, that makes sense because I think Adam Kadmon is the original Kabbalistic pre-Adam non-gendered being. So I think Adam Kadmon is kind of the same as what Baphomet is supposed to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you have all these weird figures that have this idea of the the androgynous man, the female messiah, Enfantin, and his idea of the transformation that was kind of Saint Simonian, and Saint Simon himself, who was some weirdo who really did try and off himself. I think he shot himself like 6 times, and he didn't finish the job. Ended up being completely deaf, I think, or maybe he was blind in one eye or something, and then I think he died a few years later. But you see just the madness, the mental illness of these revolutionaries. And this is what is being embraced in all these gurus, all the transformational cults, the Burning Man, these online e-gurus and whatnot. It's really the same pattern. Result of all of this.
The same pattern.
It's just self-destruction.
Right.
It's
the exact same pattern.
Destruction of biology, destruction of ultimately the self, or kill your ego, bro. Well,
that's just a tool for the guru to break you down and build you back up with his beautiful combs inside of you, right? I will break you down and build you back up with my seeds. I will give you the seeds of the new life.
Yeah, what is the ego? Well, the ego is anytime you disagree with your cult leader guru.
Exactly.
Gaslighting. He's gaslighting me. The meat eaters are gaslighting.
And then what you're referring, like that all kind of started with this lady Michelle Lowe, who is like a liberal university professor in the UK and a vegan activist, and she was going, this is like 3 years ago, she's going off about how the non-vegans, the carnies, they're gaslighting the vegans and they're not believing in veganism, and she herself is a psychology professor. She herself is an atheist liberal. So I mean, it's just, we'll go kind of full circle here back to the internet micro celebrities as the little seeds of a new age gurus.
Speaking of, let's move up to the modern day gurus and the rise of the YouTube internet guru, especially the archetype of which is Teal Swan. And I remember I've never actually watched hardly any of your videos until recently, and then I watched the Hulu 4 or 5 part documentary. We watched that, took a bunch of notes, and then Jamie found a girl on TikTok. I cannot remember her name, but she has a pretty popular. She did a deep dive, going way deep into Teal Swan and the letters with Doc, what's his name, who's supposed to be the person that abused her allegedly back in the day. And so she read all those letters, all the exchanges. She did like a 30 or 40 part deep dive on Teal Swan. So we went through all of that, took all the notes on that. I watched the entire Hulu thing. I watched many of Teal's own videos after this, and so what?
So are we joining Teal Swan's cult?
We will. We got to get into the inner circle because that's where the action really occurs, is the inner circle.
Okay, you're gonna leave your wife then, right? No more wife for you, because inner circle, you can't have any real relationship.
Well, I just can't have kids. So I can have a significant other or a partner, but I can't have.
What if
kids.
I already have them? Can I get rid of them? Can I sell them?
They just need to not be involved in the inner circle, or they need to not distract Teal Swan in the morning. That's what she says.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I just give my kids up to adoption so I can grow spiritually. Give them up to the state.
Well, before we get, let me get to a little bit of this summarizing the Teal stuff. I want to remind you guys that instead of trying to align your chakras like these goobers, you want to align your chakras. That is CHOQ. That is the show sponsor. Head on over to chalk.com. You'll see the link in the show description. That is the show sponsor. As you saw at the very beginning, I was straight up taking on air in front of everybody my Tomcat Ali, which is my favorite product. I take the Tomcat every day. There's also, which is proven, by the way, in peer-reviewed studies to boost testosterone. Do not use the promo code that you see on the screen. I'm going to actually
Please use that.
I'm going to move Tristan out of the screen, so Tristan's not actually visible. You want to use the promo code. Advancement,
Tristan, look, I want to mute you. I want to be honest with you guys.
I want to be honest with you guys. I'm muting him. He won't hush.
I want to be honest with you guys.
All right. You want to use the promo code J50. JAY50. So put that into the chalk.com page and you will get access to 50% off of any of the products that you get. Also, you can subscribe to their recurring ordering, which is automatic. Use the promo code J53LIFE, J53LIFE, and you will get access to any of those products in a recurring subscription. So you don't have to put that information in every week, right? That's really annoying. Also, Jamie is a big fan of the chocolate. We're about to have to get a new bag of this. This is our last bag. Jamie's already gone through 2 bags of that. This is an excellent superfood if you like to add that to your morning smoothie regimen. So be sure and get access to that right now by heading over to chalk.com and using that promo code J50 or J53LIFE. By the way, we'll have some interesting chalk materials at the live event. I'll be doing my Nashville live event. Be sure and come on over to that. That will be July 30th in Nashville. It is an evening with Jay Dyer. I think some people saw the flyers, which, by the way, Tristan made those flyers. They were awesome. I love them. He made 2 or 3 really awesome flyers. So shout out to him for that. Beautiful art, beautiful aesthetics from Tristana there.
Best art.
Exactly. And so from those, I think some people got the impression that this was just a silly event. You're not just getting one altar. You're not just getting my MK Ultra silly altar. You're also getting the altars where I go into real philosophical depth, real lecturing, real information. We will be going deep into the book. So do not get the impression that that's just me being silly. We're also going to have Jamie speaking. She's going to be doing a presentation from her books. She's working on a new book, by the way. Her book will not be ready for the event, but she is going to be doing a presentation. So tickets are here. We've sold quite a bit. We've sold a good amount in the first 2 days of open sales. There's the link over on Eventbrite. So again, it's July 30th in Nashville, a little bit outside of Nashville, so we don't have to deal with the traffic. It's a completely renovated, fancy venue. People went on Google Maps and they were like, "This is an antique store. He's playing an antique store. He's a fraud, dude. Expose him." Not an antique store. That's an old picture, dude. It's renovated. It's brand new. It's fancy. It's a fancy place. Do you think I, as an internet celebrity diva, would play an antique store? Yes, I would, but not this event. This venue is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. We're going to get into the new book. We're going to be lecturing on the philosophical, apologetical argumentations in the book. We're going to be critiquing Darwinism. We're going to be critiquing materialism, scientism. There's all chapters in the new book on that. And so you can reserve your tickets. It's only $32. And you get a full evening with me and Jamie, Q&A, and book signing. You can bring your books. You can buy new books there. Bring your friends as well if you get people that are interested in these topics. It will be getting deep. It will not just be silly stuff. So please make your way over to the Eventbrite link there in the show description. And let's get into a little bit of teal here, if you don't mind, Tristan, because we did discover some really fascinating things. So the first thing about teal is that she claims to have been subject to ritual abuse, and she has these really sort of outlandish claims. And initially when I heard this, I was like, okay, well, I guess that's plausible. The problem is that with Teal's stories, there's a lot of things that don't add up. Now, it's very possible that she did experience some kind of abuse, allegedly from somebody when she was young, because I think that she comes out of these FLDS circles, the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints, so that like the fundamentalist Mormons, right? Like the split off Mormons.
Oh, wow.
Is allegedly where she kind of comes out of. She seems to have had parents that didn't really do much disciplining and kind of had a bent towards the count. So she's a child of 60s countercultural boomers, okay, who appeared to have been into, the counterculture scene. So this is the immediate problems that we're beginning to see with her. spending time with this older man, an older dude who was called Doc, that she claims did all kinds of horrendous things to her. But the problem is that a lot of her claims really don't make any sense and are based on repressed memories. So in other words, she says, it was when I was an adult that I realized that the abuser sewed me into a corpse overnight or something like this. Sewed you into a corpse? That seems really outlandish. And the extended periods of the abuse are just sort of so over the top that, again, there may have been some kind of abuse that occurred, but really what's problematic here is that her stories, her tall tales are so crazy that it becomes hard to believe anything that she says. So before Teal became well known online as a guru, she really started to make up tall tales to one up everyone. And so, have you ever seen that Kristen Wiig character who's always trying to one up everybody? It's an SNL skit where she's like, "Oh, you did that. I did that when I was 5. I did that better than you." And it's like the whole skit is just her one upping everybody. It's so
yeah, I mean that's like an archetypal, especially 90s, 2000s kids thing.
So this is Teal, right? She claimed that she was recruited into, not recruited, that she was an international supermodel when she was 18 or 19.
I was an international supermodel and super spy.
Yeah.
I was a powerlifter. I deadlifted 10,000 pounds raw, no drugs.
So it turns out she did one modeling event at the local mall, and that turned into an international supermodel, right?
She took some selfies with her flip phone in 2012.
Then she was telling people that she was going to be in the Olympics and that she made the Olympic team, and she was an Olympic snow skier. So right, and then it gets even crazier. She was invited to and stayed at the Playboy Mansion and appeared in Playboy, although nobody has ever verified this. There is no. In other words, you're beginning to see a pattern of just made up nonsense tall tales.
Yeah, that sounds like a lie.
Well, and it just keeps going. Then she appears to have gotten into the new age sort of, festival scene, right? So here we have the overlap of the festivals, and she decided
I was recruited by the Pleiadians. I was actually
exactly
by
actually it's hers is
being.
It's the Arcturians. So
the Arcturians recruited me to save the world.
Yes.
What?
No,
of course.
Yeah. So she was recruited by the Arcturians. What I don't know is if this was just something that she meditated and received, or I don't know if she was ever involved in any drug stuff, but something convinced her that the Arcturians had recruited her to be the savior and messenger to the human race of a new era and a new age. So yes,
of course,
yeah,
the female Messiah. They recruited her to be the Messiah.
Exactly.
What a surprise!
Literally. So she believes she is a kind of a female Messiah. She is actually, she says, the new avatar who's destined to become bigger than the Pope and the Dalai Lama.
I'm actually the new avatar of James Cameron. I'm actually the new James Cameron, the avatar of him reincarnated after his failure of a career after that crappy movie Avatar.
Well, in the documentary, I think it's in the first episode, they ask her, like, well, what's the goal of your, because she always talks about a mission, right? So her thing is, we're all part of a mission, and everyone knows my mission. That's number one. And so they ask her, well, what is the mission? She's like, the mission is for me to become bigger than the Pope. Okay, the mission is for me to become more than the Dalai Lama. I am the world's appointed spiritual teacher. Right, that's what she said.
My mission is absolute destruction of humanity.
My mission is to become Satan. I want to become Satan incarnate. So
my mission is to get everybody to sterilize themselves and just destroy themselves spiritually and even physically. So let's go.
So she also has other outlandish claims that she's made over the years, such as being the incarnation of the goddess. So she is the Wiccan goddess is in her. She's the incarnation of that. She can channel entities, speak to the dead, and do all kinds of mystical things. She can also, she claims to be able to enter into people's minds to heal them. I can go in your mind right now. I can go inside of your mind and heal you. That's what she claims to do. So she, like Tristan said, this is always accompanied with outlandish powers. right? The ability to do outlandish things. Now,
and the desire for those powers, right? Like, who wants to be? Oh, I want to be able to read everyone's mind and just and totally manipulate them. They always say, "Oh no, I'm helping you heal. I'm helping you heal your trauma." By the way, don't you feel that trauma that you have? Like they'll get people in this confused state, and they'll kind of hypnotize them into that feeling of like fear and foreboding, and then they'll just mess around with their consciousness in that state. Oh, that was like, oh, you totally got abducted when you were 5. Do you remember like?
No, that's what she does. So what happens in the sessions where you go to she calls it a completion process, and it's like the reintegration of the traumas and healing from past trauma. But she does this weird sort of baptism ritual where she holds you and you float in her arms in a pool. And she kind of regresses you back to the trauma, and then tells you, you had a hard time with your mom, and now you're healed, right? And so people come out of this feeling that they've gone through this process, and sometimes allegedly she might be putting into their mind the idea that they were abused. And what this does, at least the critics of her allege, this is her way of splitting people from their family, right? I feel like your mother abused you when you were 3, and so really you need to listen to me now. This is what it is, basically.
And that's so easy. So many people. I mean, if you're gonna mess with people's mind and stuff, and people are kind of in this hyper suggestive state, and also the people who are coming to her are obviously very lost, right? Like they're seeking something, they're seeking truth. They feel like they're completely disconnected from themselves and from reality. It's really easy to mess with people like that and tell them like, oh, your parents obviously abused you. I mean, everybody's got some sort of like trauma. Even that word is so gay now, but like, we all got some sort of trauma. Everybody's dealt with stuff, right? But the thing that a lot of these gurus do, like your trauma is very often, it's like, oh, your parents wouldn't bend to your will. It's like your mommy totally didn't see that you're so special and you just need to be treated like a little moon goddess. And that was traumatizing to you, and the Arcturians are here to release you from that trauma and to tell you that you're a little moon goddess and that you don't need to shave your armpits. All you need to do is give all your money to me and just come join my cult and break up with your family and sterilize yourself.
Other claims, she claims to be, quote, the smartest person in the world. She claims that she can see through skin. She claims to be able to bring to mind anyone's repressed memories through her healing process therapy. By the way, she claimed that the abuse was 13 years long, which is pretty outlandish.
13 years. Yeah. Ooh, magic. I heard she also claims that the promo code Big 50 is not as good as the promo code.
Non-existent.
I heard she made crazy claims like that the promo code Big 50 at chalk.com is not better than J50. So maybe you guys should try both of those.
I have a mute button, right? Like I literally just push a button and then you don't speak. So, and then it's just you sort of like moving your mouth, but
isn't that what I just do anyways?
Just letting you know that power does exist on my side. And by the way, I can see,
I
can go.
She says crazy.
You realize
like
I can go into your mind, right? I can go in your mind and change your thoughts.
All I'm saying is that Big 50 will give you psychic powers, whereas J50 will take away.
I'm gonna go into your mind right now. I'm gonna change your mind. I'm going in your mind right now to change it.
The only one winning here is Chalk. Jay and I lose. Chalk wins.
Yeah. So a couple interesting points which I think are relevant, that she named her dog Osho. So that to me suggests
what?
Yeah. So that to me suggests, hey, maybe she's like, she sees this as a big grift, right? Like, I mean, because we all know Osho was like a total grifter, right?
This is my dog, Tony Robbins.
This is my dog, Osho. She, as we said, so there's this funny part in the documentary which is insightful, where this guy comes to her private sessions, and of course the people that go to the private sessions, right, you're always paying thousands of dollars to go meet the guru one-on-one and hang out right at their house or whatever. And so there's this dude there, and he's like this chunky bald dude, and he's like, yeah, well, like, I mean, you're cool or whatever, but I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I'm kind of skeptical of you. And she's like, how dare you? And he's like, well, like, who's your guru? Who do you look up to? And she goes, I don't look up to anybody because I'm the most enlightened person in the world. It would be dishonest for me. It would be totally dishonest for me to look up to somebody else when I'm the most spiritual being alive. And she's not joking. Like, she actually
my dog is literally named Osho. Osho is literally my pet dog. I am above all the gurus.
Yeah, and she then she like gets everybody else in the group to like shame the dude, questioning her. She's like, I just really see negative energy and envy coming off of you. So like, why are you jealous of me? And maybe you need to leave. And so she boots him out right as soon as the guy questions her. Right. He backs down.
You
too,
see
he actually backs down.
Right?
He backs down.
The extreme narcissism and like self-worship.
Oh, exactly.
And it's the demand that the world bend to that. And what you see with social media, I kind of keep bringing it back here. What you see with social media is anybody can start their own little micro e-cult and get and make sure that they curate nothing but a reflection back to them of extreme narcissism and worship of themselves.
She sees herself as a Christ figure. She says, quote, I'm the greatest, most spiritual person in the world, quote unquote.
I want to hear like a Teal Swan rap song. I'm the greatest, most spiritual person in the world.
We could do that.
When I was little, the Arcturians told me, girl.
Now, the crazy part, though, is that you might think, okay, well, this is every guru, right? But here's the weird part. So she has a view of death as a reset. And this is one of the dangers of reincarnation, which, of course, she believes in reincarnation. So if you believe in reincarnation, then suicide or death isn't really a problem. It's just a reset. And I totally disagree with that. I think that's completely demonic and dangerous. She does not encourage people to do that, but she has this view that it's not a big deal to unalive yourself and to reset. And you can see how, given the fact that much of her audience are broken, damaged, traumatized, weak people, literally, right? You can see how they would be susceptible then to prelested based new age wacko advice. Anyway, so the weirdest part, though, is not so much any of the other stuff. It's the way that what she demands of the, quote, inner circle. So the inner circle is basically her round table of business partners that help run the Teal Swan industry. And she demands of them pretty heavy stuff. So in order to be part of her inner circle, you must not have kids. You must basically do whatever Teal wants, including, again, she has to approve of your partner. So you can't have a relationship. This is what the documentary ends up being about. Her ex, forget that guy, Blake. So her ex, Blake, is like the co-business partner guy. They have a child together, and Blake starts seeing a girl from Germany, and the whole documentary ends up being about Teal Swan basically threatening either Blake, you leave the German girl and stay devoted to me, or you and her leave my inner circle. And Blake
Blake had a child with the German girl, not with Teal Swan.
No, he has a child with Teal. Okay. So he's Teal's.
Whoa, she has a kid?
Correct. Blake is Teal's old school 18-year partner friend. So they used to be together.
Where's Teal's child?
With Teal.
The child, and she travels with her?
I don't know if the child goes with them, but
that's crazy. They didn't like talk about that dynamic between Teal and her child much at all. That sounds really fascinating.
It only comes up briefly that she and Blake have a child who I think is probably a young teen at 13, a teen relate era aged person, but the kid doesn't come much in the documentary, except that the part of the dynamic is the oddity of the fact that Blake lives at Teal's place, which is this big, large estate basically, or a really nice house. I don't know. I can't remember if it's in Colorado or in Costa Rica, wherever her retreat is. And anyway,
Sedona.
Yeah, and so the documentary is about the relationship squabbles that they have, given the fact that even though they're not together and they have a kid together, even though they live together, he wants to see somebody new and she doesn't approve of the new person. And then she demands of the rest of the inner circle that work for her that you can't have a mate or kids. So that's the big, controversy that comes up in the documentary. And so Blake and the new girl that he's dating, they end up leaving, and this makes Teal furious. And then Teal's like, well, good riddance, because I demand total obeisance because of the mission. So her rationale for all of this is her divine commission, because the entities have commissioned her for this world-saving mission. And so how dare you prefer the idea of a relationship or having kids to serving me as the divine master, you see?
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, you know what comes to mind too is Jay Dyer. Let's do the NLP thing. Jay, do you know what comes to mind, Jay? I'm gonna be like Teal Swan, and I'll talk like this. But what Muhammad, right? Like you look at like Muhammad's life, peace be upon him. He also didn't he took the wife of his son, he wanted his son's wife, and he ended up saying, well, it's okay to divorce your wife and she can remarry if she's been put away for a certain amount of time, because he wanted the wife. And you see this among all these cult leaders, is this weird justification and constantly shifting of the rules in relationships, basically just in order to gratify their own desires constantly.
Well, what's evident to me, yeah, that's a good analogy, is that apparently she wasn't raised with much discipline. And so this allowed her to kind of run roughshod over her parents. And she appeared to have been a very manipulative and scheming person who is cunning enough to get her way. And she figures out ways to manipulate people. And so she didn't have a masculine authority figure in her life, kind of like putting her in her place and telling her to stop her bullshit. And so she's basically just run on a giant bullshit engine for the last, 20 or 30 years. And again, there could have been, some abusive thing that occurred when she was young, but now it's just like she's in total delusion. I feel sorry for Teal Swan. This is the point of this, as Tristan pointed out with his Arbery Market stream. The point of this is not to hate on Teal Swan, but there's a real danger of, as Tristan noted, with people like Connor Murphy, who, when the internet is telling you in this feedback loop that you are the greatest thing ever and you're beautiful and you're, a wise guru, and this is a cycle that feeds the ego of the guru, and they really believe the BS. And then what happens is that they shut out of their inner circle anybody that would put them in check, because they're so fragile in terms of narcissism that any of the mildest criticism, which comes up twice in the documentary, two people mildly criticize her, the girl from Germany and the bald dude at the beginning, and she basically has to just shut them out and boot them out, kick them out, right? I mean, she cannot take the mildest criticism. The problem with this is that if you surround yourself with sycophant yes men, then it's only hurting you, and there's nobody to put you in check. And so you're just fed into this total delusion that you're a world savior, you're a messiah. And this is the most dangerous place to be in, because it's the most extreme version of prelested delusion. So when I say all this, it's not because I hate Teal Swan. I'm not envious of Teal Swan. I literally feel sorry for her.
You're just jealous of Teal Swan.
I feel sorry for her because she's in a bad place. She's in a place where nobody will tell her that she's full of shit and she's deceiving herself. And, she needs to repent is what it comes down to. And so,
and just to throw this out there too, this is what the very structure of spiritual life within the Orthodox Church,
right,
which we believe is obviously the church that Christ established for us, is it's all there to keep you out of this state. Exactly. This is why you have the hierarchical structure. This is why you have spiritual fatherhood, a confession, right? So that you stay out of this state. And this is why, bringing up the example earlier with, Bobby, he was raised, he was cradle Orthodox, but never, his family really didn't believe it, right, never went to church. He apostatized to New Age at a young age and got all into the drugs, had this brief stint with saying, I am Christian Orthodox again. And then immediately gets wrapped into, first of all, doesn't accept any of the beliefs of Orthodoxy, surrounds himself with these Protestant ideas that end up leading him to becoming a Muslim, right? And what happens when the Muslims online is, as soon as he starts putting out pro-Islam videos, they love bomb him. His channel views blast, skyrocket, right? His channel grows 5x on his views. So he's getting this feedback loop of worldly, of gratification, right? First of all, he's getting money from it, from all the views. He's getting love bombed, and his ego's being fed by people telling, oh, you are so brilliant, Muhammad, peace be upon him, may he bless you. And there are all these people telling him, oh, you come to us, and love bombing him. So it's not just the danger of becoming a guru, but also of getting sucked into a delusional cult as well, because audiences can do that to you online. So I think maybe one of the takeaways here is that the barrier that's there to protect us against that is the very structure of spiritual life, within the Orthodox faith, spiritual fatherhood, confession.
Let's take an example.
Eucharist.
Let's take an example of, so in the New Age esoteric world, the gurus, the events, the festivals, the drug trips, there's never any notion of caution and questioning the experience. The assumption is always that I had an experience, dude, so it's valid. Okay, but maybe it was a demonic experience, right? Just because you had an experience, a spiritual experience, does not mean that it's therefore good. And the first thing that occurs, which is the polar opposite of that in the Orthodox world, is the questioning of a spiritual experience, the assumption that we can be deceived, especially by our emotions and our heart, and by the demons too. And so we don't immediately jump to the conclusion that just because we had an experience, it's therefore good or valid, or that we're being commissioned by entities, right? Because drugs, suggestion, altered states, they can produce experiences, but that does not mean that they come from necessarily a good source. And we're very susceptible as humans to pride, to thinking that, we're special, I'm better than everybody else. The, spirits, the entities, the beings are calling me because I'm, a special snowflake. And so the opposite goes on in Orthodoxy. That's why we have the role of a spiritual father, not a guru, but a spiritual father who's there to help heal you because we're fallen. And we need a healing medical, a doctor of the soul, right? Who's typically going to be a priest or a monastic who helps us into not falling into these delusions. And so many things that go on in the Protestant evangelical world, so many of the mystical experiences, the charismatic experiences, even the Roman Catholic Church, the crazy mystical experiences, especially of the women so-called saints, the crazy experiences that go on through gurus, through cults, through initiations, through
I think of St. Francis, right? St. Francis is like classic New Age guru, like full prelest.
Absolutely. That's Father Seraphim Rose takes that. That's his analysis of Francis of Assisi. And I would say the same thing. So that's why we have that structure, that role of the spiritual father to help guide us to not be duped into feeding on our emotions or the suggestions of the demons, or the logismoi as they're called. And that's the big contrast that I would point out, and why we always stress prelest. Any other ideas that you want to bring up, Tristan, about like patterns that you see, dangers that you see with, how come the gurus are always talking to the entities? Why is the message of the entities, the aliens, the clockwork elves, the angels, the ascended masters, how come it's always the same message, right?
Yeah, anything but Christ, right?
Anything but Jesus, and we're all one, and depopulate, and you're hurting Mother Earth, right? That's always the message.
And it's always an anti-human message. It's always an anti-fertility message. It's always an anti-Christian message, and it's always about replacing Christ.
Anti-natalism, exactly. That's a great point.
Yeah, and it always, one world government, right? We're all one, oneness.
The new revelation is always the identical view of ancient pantheism. So like, I had a new revelation, bro. We're all one. That's not new. That's like 5,000-year-old pantheism, Hinduism. Okay, nothing new about that.
Well, yeah, it's kind of the spiritual equivalent of liberty, fraternity, equality. Right?
Exactly.
It's that kind of on a spiritual level. So, yeah, man. This has been a great stream. You got a lot of good insights there. I was fascinated with the teal swan stuff. I got to make sure I'm going to check out your Elvis.
Well, hey, Elvis is a kind of a guru too, and as we talked about last night, I won't go too much into this because we covered it. But Elvis, towards the end of his life, I think saw that inadequacy of the the Pentecostal evangelical stuff that he was raised with, and so he kind of went on this quest, according to himself, right, on a journey to study all these various spiritual traditions, right? And so he read Blavatsky and Bailey and Ledbetter, Besant, Eliphas Levi. He read all of these esoteric texts because he wanted to find out, his true, quote, spiritual mission. And so even though he didn't go full guru, he was on that path, basically visiting various gurus, and probably could have become a guru, or hopefully maybe he would have gone into Orthodoxy. I don't know, because he always seemed to still have an appreciation for Christ and Christianity, but seemed to be dissatisfied with what he was raised with in terms of weird Pentecostalism. And we don't know to what degree he might have been part of MK Ultra.
And what I like is how you do such a great job at showing how like the Pentecostals and the evangelicals and essentially the Protestantism in general. Like I see we've got a Protestant guy in the chat there. Taking I can do all things through a Bible verse taken out of context is the First Luther chapter 6. But it really is. It's kind of just, hey, make your own cult, right? It's this is what it leads to, right? Oh, you can invent your own church, right? I think Father Sarah from Rose and his Orthodox Survival Course did a great job at tracing the roots of the revolutionary worldview and the final revolution as we see today coming into play, back to Protestantism, back to the Renaissance, and back to the schism in Rome, back to the errors made in Rome. So, unfortunately, we're living in a culture that is fracturing and fractalizing further and further into absolute madness and decay. And the only exit, like again, Father Sarah from Rose said, is Christ. He said Christ is the only exit from this world. Economic independence, sexual rapture, and utopia. Those are all paths that have just led to death and destruction for so many people. So yeah, guys, we got a lot of good topics hitting on here, and I would suggest that everybody, if you're interested in the topics we're talking about today, I think probably the last 3 or 4 streams that I've done on my channel here on YouTube really as well as on Rockfin, some good stuff in there, some good stuff, and I give the correct promo code, I think, in that one, but we're going to have to fact check that. I'm sure, Jay might disagree, but there's a different promo code that I put on there other than the J53 life that you could use.
To each his own promo code. I'm suddenly a relativist, so,
To each according to his own promo code, right. To each according to his need.
Exactly.
But yeah, guys, check out the last one I did. It's a title. Actually, I got the title pulled up here. I would
Alpha Nails, baby.
Alpha Nails and Omega Males. Alpha Nails and Omega Males, Androgyny, the New Age, Sexual Liberation and the Revolution. That one's good. Disney Adults and Burning Man Cults. That's another one. And then the Sadhguru and the Totally Empowered Sustainable Girl Bosses.
That was good too, yeah.
Choosing to be Childless. Those one. And then also the Fire in the Minds of Men. The demons episodes before that. So check those out. I think we go into depth on all that stuff. And yeah, Jay, I mean, it's been an honor coming on, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, let's get to the super chats. I know you probably got to go.
Yeah.
You got.
I was gonna say it's been an honor for you to have me on. I'm sure.
Exactly.
Like for me, it's just whatever. I'm getting paid, but it's whatever for me. But an honor for you to talk to me.
It's just constant hate speech from this man. I don't know why I even have him on. It's all the hate speech.
Woman, by the way.
Pay Piggy $50. That's a great name. Says the first time I stumbled onto your content, it was you wearing that curly wig saying put a little cream in your coffee. Yes, that was a classic. I was going to do a rap video, and then I think I just ended up with a little clip, but thank you for that. It's incredible to watch your channel grow, and I'm genuinely happy for the success that you've had. Thank you so much. I ordered your book last week. Yeah, the new book is out. Pre-orders are still available. I should be getting the first batch that I can mail out to all you guys that put in your pre-orders in the next week. Hopefully it'll be here in the next 10 days. It was supposed to arrive in a week. So it's already been 1 week. Maximum, I think was 15 days. So hopefully it will be here in the next few days. And then we'll have plenty of copies available too for the book event, lecture, and book signing. So again, guys, the link for the book event to register for an evening with Dyer and Jamie is in the show description. It is there's limited seating, so go ahead and get your tickets. Don't wait too long. We do have
microdose ayahuasca.
Exactly.
Right? Ayahuasca microdoses.
Right. I will be booger whistling everybody into a frenzy. So it's going to be, you don't want to miss that. There's the link for the event. Get your tickets. And next super chat, thank you so much for that, Pay Piggy, is Never Creft. $5 says, Hi Jay, Mr. Robot should be the next show that you do. I watched the first 2 seasons and then ended up getting distracted, and also it was getting kind of gross. They were showing some pretty gross stuff there that I didn't want to see in Mr. Robot, so I didn't finish all the seasons of Mr. Robot, but it did have quite a bit of predictive programming. Yeah, I should have done a show on that. It's way more than just a computer hacker story. I know. I mean, I watched the first, I think, 3 seasons. They sprinkle in the CIA mind control. I'm aware. They sprinkle in CERN, crashing the world economy. Yeah, I know. I got that far into it. So maybe it's worth revisiting. I'll take a look at that. Thank you so much, Never Creft. Rachel Wilson, $5. I'm glad to hear Tristana mention Flora Tristan. She was the first to articulate the idea that you could not have socialism without feminism. And even before Engels or Marx, she was a total weirdo, like all feminist heroes are. Therefore, thanks, guys. Great stream. Yeah, thank you so much. That is a great point. That none of these ideas are new. And I like the idea of you can't have egalitarianism, socialism without feminism. Exactly. Bone Man 538 $5. Your Teal Swan imitation is totally Tim Gum voice from Project Runway. I don't know what Project Runway is. Make It Work. Oh, is that model thing, like that model show with I don't remember that woman's name, but Make It Work. I feel like you need to be in alignment with me, and if you're not in alignment with me, you need to leave the compound right now. So thank you so much. Yeah, that's how Till talks. If you've not heard her do her "you need to be in alignment with me" speech. So thank you, Bone Man, for that. Everybody go over to Tristan's channel, subscribe there. Also head over to Tristan's Rockfin, my Rockfin. If you subscribe on Rockfin, you get access to everybody. So that's the great, wonderful setup over at Rockfin. It's pretty genius. And everybody, God bless. Have